The studio was buzzing with tension, a low hum of whispers and nervous shuffling filling the air. Cameras clicked constantly, but this wasn't the usual chaotic scene of a typical political debate. Something felt different. Everyone knew this wasn't just another argument on TV, it was bigger. Before continue, please like and subscribe my YouTube channel for more political debates or clashes. Jasmine Crockett stepped through the studio doors, her heels clicking softly on the floor. Her face was calm, but her eyes burned with focus. She paused for a moment, taking a deep breath, letting the weight of the room settle on her shoulders. Every reporter, cameraman, and crew member seemed to sense the electricity she carried. There was a quiet confidence in her posture, straight back, chin slightly raised, hands resting gently on her papers, but beneath it a fierce determination that she was here to speak her truth. Across the room, Donald Trump leaned back in his chair, a smirk playing on his lips, while Ivanka sat beside him, flipping through notes, her expression a mix of poise and impatience. Trump's eyes flicked toward Jasmine, as if measuring the challenge before him. He tapped his fingers on the desk, a rhythm that mirrored his growing irritation, while Ivanka's subtle raise of the eyebrow told the story of someone ready to defend at a moment's notice. The host's voice broke the quiet, announcing the start of the live debate. The audience leaned forward in anticipation. Reporters adjusted their cameras, whispered last-minute notes, and scribbled quickly in their notebooks. For the next 5 minutes, silence and tension wrapped around the room like a thick fog. Every glance, every subtle movement, every fleeting expression, Jasmine's calm resolve, Trump's impatient frown, Ivanka's sharp gaze, told a story all its own. Viewers at home could feel it. Something explosive was about to happen, and no one knew who would strike first. The debate officially began, but the polite greetings felt more like a calm before the storm. Jasmine Crockett didn't waste a second. She leaned forward slightly, her fingers lightly resting on the table, and delivered her first statement with a steady voice that carried authority and clarity. The room seemed to pause. Reporters scribbled furiously, some whispering, others simply staring at the unfolding scene. Donald Trump's eyes narrowed as he interrupted, his voice loud and sharp. "That's not true," he barked, leaning forward and slapping his hand on the desk for emphasis. His smirk was gone now, replaced with a mixture of irritation and surprise. Ivanka tried to jump in, her tone calm but firm, adding support for her father, but Jasmine held her ground. She didn't flinch, didn't hesitate. Her gaze locked on Trump, unyielding, her calmness cutting through the tension like a knife. The audience felt it. Some leaned closer in their seats, anticipating the next words. Others exchanged nervous glances, sensing that this was no ordinary debate. Jasmine's voice, steady but strong, carried not just facts, but a human touch. The way her eyes flicked briefly to the audience, the subtle pause before she made a key point, the slight tightening of her jaw as she emphasized a critical idea. Trump shifted uncomfortably, his fingers drumming the desk faster, while Ivanka's brow furrowed as she tried to measure the effect of Jasmine's words. For a moment, the energy in the studio became electric. The cameras zoomed in on every expression, the slight smirk replaced by tension, the calm confidence replacing the usual nervous gestures, and the faint tightening of jaws as words hung in the air, waiting to explode. By the time the first few minutes passed, it was clear this was more than a debate. It was a clash of wills, and the room, and everyone watching, knew that the real battle was just beginning. The debate moved into more heated territory, and the tension in the room thickened. Jasmine Crockett's voice remained calm, but there was a sharp edge to her words now. She cited facts, reports, and real examples, each point carefully measured, each phrase deliberate. Her eyes flicked briefly to the cameras, then back to Trump and Ivanka, making it clear she was not intimidated. Trump shifted in his seat, leaning forward now, his face tightening. His fingers tapped a faster rhythm on the desk, each tap echoing his growing impatience. "You're wrong," he snapped, his tone louder, more forceful than before. Ivanka leaned slightly toward him, her hands clasped tightly, trying to interject with a polished rebuttal, but Jasmine cut her off with quiet authority, keeping the momentum in her favor. The audience reacted visibly. Some leaned forward in their chairs, murmuring softly. Others crossed their arms, clearly engaged in every word. Cameras zoomed in on subtle gestures, Trump's jaw clenching, Ivanka's fleeting glance toward her father for reassurance, Jasmine's slight smile when she landed a particularly sharp point. The room crackled with energy, as though everyone could feel the weight of the words bouncing back and forth. Then came a moment that made the entire studio pause. Jasmine posed a direct, pointed question, one that caught both Trump and Ivanka off guard. For a split second, silence fell. Trump blinked rapidly, trying to form a response. Ivanka's hand tightened around her notes. The host shifted in his chair, sensing the drama reaching a peak. Even the reporters seemed frozen, pens hovering over notepads, eyes wide. That question changed everything. The rising tension became almost unbearable. Every glance, every twitch, every controlled breath spoke volumes. The viewers at home could feel it. This clash was no longer about politics alone. It was personal, raw, and unpredictable. Just when it seemed the debate was spiraling into a tense back and forth, Jasmine Crockett paused. Her eyes softened slightly, and her voice took on a quieter, almost personal tone. She leaned forward, resting her elbows gently on the table, and began to share a story that connected the political issues they were debating to real people's lives. The room went silent. Reporters stopped typing, cameras stayed fixed, and even the host seemed to hold his breath. For a moment, it felt like time slowed. Trump's usual smirk vanished, replaced with a frown that deepened with each word. Ivanka's eyes widened slightly, her fingers tightening around her notes as she listened closely. Jasmine's voice carried conviction, but also emotion, a mixture of frustration, empathy, and determination that made every word hit harder. The audience shifted in their seats. Some leaned forward, their hands gripping their laps. Others murmured quietly, clearly moved by the story. Jasmine's subtle gestures, a slight nod, a careful pause before emphasizing a point, a soft sigh of empathy, gave her words weight that numbers or policy arguments never could. Trump opened his mouth to respond, but paused mid-sentence, clearly caught off guard. Ivanka glanced at him, her expression showing surprise and uncertainty. The energy in the studio changed instantly. The debate had shifted from a game of words to something deeper, more human. For the viewers at home, this was the turning point. Jasmine had done something unexpected. She had made the policies personal. The clash was no longer just political strategy. It had become emotional, gripping, and unpredictable. Every eye in the room followed her, every mind was engaged, and everyone could sense this debate had just taken a direction no one expected. Trump finally regained his composure, but his energy had shifted. He leaned forward sharply, his voice booming across the studio. "That's not how it works," he shouted, pointing a finger toward Jasmine. His frown deepened, eyes narrowing as if trying to intimidate her. Ivanka immediately jumped in, her tone firm but controlled, trying to clarify his point, her eyes darting toward the cameras, aware of every expression being broadcast. Jasmine didn't flinch. She tilted her head slightly, her calm demeanor unshaken, and countered each argument with precision. Her hands moved subtly, emphasizing key points, her voice steady but cutting. There was a quiet power in the way she spoke, a balance of confidence and human emotion that drew every eye in the room. Even Trump's smirk couldn't hide his frustration anymore. The audience felt the tension like a live wire. Some leaned forward, gripping their seats, while others whispered to neighbors in disbelief. The reporters scribbled furiously, their pens struggling to keep up with every exchange. Cameras zoomed in on expressions, Trump's clenched jaw and tapping fingers, Ivanka's quick glances at him for reassurance, Jasmine's slight, knowing smile when she landed a particularly sharp point. At one moment, the words seemed to hang in the air, each second stretching longer than the last. Trump's voice rose again. Ivanka tried to speak over him, and Jasmine cut through with a calm but firm interruption, leaving both of them momentarily speechless. The room practically vibrated with the clash of wills, not just a debate, but a battle of presence, poise, and personality. By the end of this exchange, it was clear to everyone watching, Jasmine had changed the energy of the debate. She wasn't just responding, she was leading it, and the audience could feel that something major was unfolding. The stage was set for the final climactic moments. The final moments of the debate arrived, and the tension in the studio was almost unbearable. Jasmine Crockett leaned slightly forward, her eyes steady, her voice calm but full of power. Every word she spoke carried weight, connecting logic with emotion, and the audience could feel it. Reporters scribbled faster, cameras zoomed in on every subtle movement, and even the host seemed tense, unsure how to end this storm. Trump opened his mouth to respond, but for the first time, he faltered. His usual confidence wavered, his voice softer, uncertain. Ivanka glanced at him, her expression flickering between concern and surprise. Jasmine didn't rush. She paused for a moment, letting the silence stretch, then delivered her closing statement, firm, clear, and unforgettable. Her words weren't just arguments, they were a challenge, a statement that left the room frozen for just a second longer than expected. The studio was electric. Every subtle gesture, Trump leaning back with a tight jaw, Ivanka's fingers tapping nervously on her notes, Jasmine's slight knowing smile when she landed a particularly sharp point, told a story of a clash that had gone beyond politics. It was a battle of wills, personalities, and presence. As the cameras panned across the audience, some nodded slowly, some whispered in disbelief, and many sat wide-eyed, caught up in the drama. Even the crew behind the cameras seemed absorbed in the moment. Jasmine finally stood, straightening her posture, her expression composed but proud. Trump and Ivanka exchanged a brief, sharp glance, unspoken words passing between them, hinting that this clash was far from over. For viewers at home, the debate ended, but the tension lingered. Comments, reactions, and speculation were inevitable. The story didn't close. It only left everyone wanting more. The clash had been decisive, dramatic, and unforgettable. And one thing was clear: Jasmine Crockett had made her mark, and nobody in that room would ever forget it.